Sifter for the ear.
News, interviews, reviews, cinema, TV, streaming. Action.
Hi y'all, this is Jerry Williams, aka TV Jerry. The Virginia Black Film Festival celebrates its second year as a partnership with the city of Hampton. They'll have over 50 films in competition and guest speakers. It includes a free Juneteenth beach party, a Juneteenth concert, and a gala to honor Clifton Powell, Tim Reed, and BK Fulton. Tim and BK have both been featured on my podcast, and I'll include a link to them and the festival on the webpage for this show at tvjerry.com.
All we really needed to do was slither out a frame. We just had to roll the camera, get it going, and then kind of tap the grass around it, see where it would go. When we created sort of a box around it, there was only one direction where it could slither and get away. And so that's ultimately how we were able to get it moving out of frame.
That was director Warren Skeels talking about trying to film a snake for a scene in his thriller The Man in the White Van, which is now streaming. He's joined by his co-writer Sharon Cobb, who moved from L.A. to Jacksonville, Florida, where they both live. We'll discuss the making of the film and find out their Virginia connection in this week's discussion. Oh yeah, and this was actually recorded in April, which explains the references to White Lotus later on.
Sifter Review of the Week.
Deep Cover on Prime Video. Orlando Bloom, Bryce Dallas Howard, and Nick Mohammed play down-on-their-luck improv actors who are recruited by a police officer to go undercover. Their situations create amusing conflicts as their reputation as real gangsters spreads. Howard plays it straight as the assured leader of the group. Bloom is enjoyable as the pretentious actor, but it's Mohammed whose slight bumbling character provides the most fun. There's not a lot of outright hilarity, but the trio carries the humor well, and their supporting actors add to the comic conflict. Deep Cover is an amiable little summer entertainment, and I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. So I'm delighted today to have Sharon Cobb and Warren Skeels down in Florida. Hi, y'all.
Hi, y'all. A big happy hello, y'all.
Yeah, we go. Well, you don't know this, Warren, but I know Sharon knows this already. I'm a native of Florida. I was born and raised, actually born in Williston.
Okay. Yeah,
which is kind of near Brooksville, where the movie took place, and I lived in Chiefland for a while.
It is.
Well, I want to ask you who you are, and then I'll ask you about your obsession with Florida. So why don't you both introduce yourselves and tell the audience what you did on The Man with the White Van.
Director goes first.
My name is, Warren, and I co-wrote the script with Sharon, served as a producer, but my primary role was in directing the feature film.
Right. And Sharon, how about you?
Yeah, Sharon Y with a Y, Cobb. And I've been doing this for 30 years now. And so I'm co-writer with Warren on this wonderful film.
Well, now that brings up something up front, then I have to ask, and we'll get into some of the other questions. Obviously, Sharon, you've been doing it a lot longer than Warren. Warren, what did she bring to that process that helped you learn more about being a scriptwriter? And how many scripts had you written before this one, Warren?
Oh, look, I think as a screenwriter, it always feels like you write 5, 6, 7 scripts before you start to really get to, start really kind of zeroing in on the craft and kind of being good at it, so to speak. So I'd written one other screenplay that had been made into a film, though I've written about probably maybe 12 or so screenplays before this prior. But Sharon's just, she's super talented as a writer, very crafty, very clever, a very strong sense of structure in her writing, and just a really great collaborator. So I knew going into it that she would be a really probably overqualified partner to write with. But I had read another script of hers, Envy. I thought she handled suspense really, really well in, and I thought that would be something that was going to be really critical to this screenplay. So, we decided to collaborate on this.
And Sharon, how was working with Warren? And let me ask you this too. Were you on the set, or did you just work on the screenplay and then you went away and let Warren direct by himself?
Well, Warren and I worked on the screenplay together, and we live in Jacksonville.
Right,
and so we were lucky to be able to share the room and work, or be on the phone and work, or I'll do another draft and then he takes it. So we had a great collaboration. I've worked with a lot of directors before as far as writing is concerned. And I will say that, and I know Warren's heard this before, but Warren's the best writer I've worked with, who's also a director, without a doubt.
Those are very kind words. Thank you,
He
Sharon.
gets character. He has acting background as well. I don't know if he mentioned that. He has an acting background as well, and that served a lot.
That's always important, yeah. As a director, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It was great working with Warren. So great that we've done it again.
There you go.
We'll talk about that later.
Before we go any further, my podcast always covers film and TV with a Virginia connection. And we've already been talking about Florida, Florida, Florida. But Sharon has a Virginia connection, and somebody's here to confirm that.
Surprise guest drop in.
It's Lisa.
Footnote.
Lisa Giles is a local producer and festival director. Her projects include the Richmond version of the 48-Hour Film Project, the Richmond Film Network, and the Virginia Screenwriters Forum. And I'll include a link to that podcast with her on the webpage for this show at tvjerry.com. So we've been talking all about the Florida connections, but Lisa, she has a Virginia connection. What is that connection?
I met Sharon in Orlando when the grand finale of the 48-Hour Film Project, which is Filmapalooza, was in Orlando.
Yes, and I've judged competitions for Lisa.
Yeah, she's so great to offer her talent and her skill and her time to our local filmmakers, screenwriters, particularly. She has done Zoom webinars with them, has been just a really amazing resource for our local talent. But she was so gracious to offer as a prize for the Richmond Film Network Screenwriting Showdown to 30-minute mentor Zoom for the winner. And again, that was something that one of our writers specifically asked. It was like, Lisa, can you call in a favor and have her offer this as a prize? And I was like, I don't know. I hate to ask for favors, but I'll do it. And she said yes. So
Sharon, why do you like to do these workshops and mentorships?
Because I had people do that for me when I was coming up. When I moved to LA in 93, I had a lot of mentors, including people at the studios. And, it's an invaluable tool to have, to be able to ask questions like that, get an automatic answer from somebody who's been in the business quite a long time. So people did it for me.
Well, thank you for dropping in. I'll put a link on the webpage for the network and all that. So I want to thank you for dropping in, actually driving by because you're in the car.
I am in the car.
Thank you. Drive carefully.
Bye, Lisa.
Thank you.
Sorry to leave you out, Warren.
No, that was great. That was so much fun to watch.
Well, thank you. Let's go back to the beginning a little bit. Let me ask both of you, what is your background? I know, Sharon, you mentioned you were in Hollywood for years, so give us that little nutshell version of your career.
I started writing fiction in 1982 or so. It was when I moved to Key West, and there were a lot of writers down there. I started writing screenplays when I moved up to Jacksonville, and it must have been 1989, 90. Everybody said that I was talking to out in LA, everybody said I had to move out there. So I did. In 1993, I moved out there, and I was there until 2001. I found an agent within 3 months, doing meetings 5 or 6 times a week at the studios or production companies. I moved back here in 2001. I had a friend, Terry Rossio, who wrote Aladdin and Shrek and Pirates of the Caribbean and a bunch of stuff. And he said, if you move back to Jacksonville, you'll never make another movie. You will never do that. About 3 months of being here, I had a script that was purchased by a production company in London, and they called me over to work on the script with them in London. And that was called A Lighthouse Hill.
Footnote.
I'll have an IMDb link to Lighthouse Hill on the webpage for this show, although it's not currently available to stream.
So, no, things have gone well. Actually, I'm really glad I'm living in Jacksonville.
And Warren, how about you? What's your background?
It's so funny because, Sharon, I just realized right now, and I don't think I've ever really made this connection, but you and I were in LA at the exact same time.
Oh, wow.
I went to a performing arts high school and kind of entered the whole world of film and everything from an acting perspective. I went to University of Southern Cal, got a Bachelor of Fine Arts in acting, and that was from 94 to 98. So that was the same.
Oh, my gosh.
So we both sort of experienced the same version of LA. And that's where I kind of, ended up in the independent filmmaking side of things for a bit. And that brought me to New York and then eventually back to Jacksonville, where I started a production company, and that ended up kind of blowing up in a very profound way. And so I did that for about 13, 14 years. In 2015, I started Skeels Films. The first project out of the gate was an unscripted lifestyle docuseries called Siesta Key that I sold to Paramount Plus and MTV.
Footnote.
I'll have a link to the show on the webpage for this show at TV Jerry.
Executive produced 8-9 hours of television and directed a good portion of those episodes. And then that kind of moved me into the ability to get The Man in the White Van off the ground.
That's a perfect segue because that's where obviously the two of you work together. So how did you meet? How did y'all decide, hey, we want to make this movie together?
We met during, I think, the Jacksonville Film Festival, actually.
Okay, that's what I would say. Yeah, that was.
And where did the idea come from?
I was really interested, just in general, my background. I love anything that's true crime, supernatural, thriller, heavy in suspense. I had optioned a book on the serial shooter in Phoenix in 2005, 2006. I was having dinner with one of my partners on Siesta Key. He was asking what I was into, and I was explaining that to him. And he just stopped any kind of conversation and looked at his wife and said, "Oh, if you really are into serial killers, she's got a story for you." Decided to meet for coffee, and after several coffees later, and her unpacking this whole story of what happened back in 1974, 75 in Brooksville, Florida, I really just thought this actually is something that should be told. It's very cinematic. I think it's inspirational in many ways because, spoiler alert, she does survive. Reached out to Sharon immediately to partner on it, but I thought Sharon was best suited for it, for both the genre and the skill set.
Let's talk about the movie, The Man in the White Van. Let's talk about the actual production of it. For one thing, it's set in the 70s, so already you've got the challenge of period. You had that great house. Were those retro appliances already in it, or did y'all have to install those?
Oh, yeah. So Lauren Spalding, the production designer, she's fabulous at what she does. And she and the art director, Kurt Kane, it was a combination of, doing all the production designer, art director tricks on kind of reshaping and resurfacing the counters, and then also bringing in appliances like the yellow refrigerator. Like the stove there it's a fairly contemporary stove, but they changed out all the facing on it. So instead of it being the metal facing, it was like this wood laminate that really kind of set it more in the period and the tone. I think we had a choice of it could, $15,000 for us to remove this stove, bring in a period appropriate stove and install it and then reinstall it after the fact, or $50 for some laminate in our time to, kind of refab this. And I was like, let's just do that. We're good.
It worked. I have to ask you, as a director, one of the earliest scenes, how do you direct a snake?
Okay, that's pretty funny. So the snake was supposed to be thicker and larger, and it was supposed to be more like a constrictor or something. And
Or a rattlesnake.
Yeah, you're Florida. Hello. Yeah.
The rattlesnake was an insurance issue, so we had to we sort of had to nix that in pre-production. It was originally written as a rattlesnake, and then but on the day, it was actually quite a funny moment where they, it was between takes, and the AD or someone's like, "Hey, we need to borrow you. You need to choose your snake." And I walk over, and there's like 6 people all kind of standing around, like, "Oh, like is this a sizable snake?" Or what, and they're like, "Okay, here's one snake," and the snake was literally like 1.5 feet, right? And then the next snake was like 2 feet, and I said, "I just need the largest snake you have here." And they're like, "Okay, well here's this red snake," and I'm like, "That's the one." They're like, "Okay." So once we actually got it where we needed to be, we kind of put the camera on it, and it's a snake, right? There's no. They're wrangling the snake, but they're not coaching the snake.
Right. You can't train a snake.
The snake does not have a BFA in acting.
Right.
All we really needed to do was slither out of frame. And so, we decided to roll the camera, get it going, and then kind of tap the grass around it, see where it would go. There was probably 5 minutes or so that, went along where it kind of slithered and would stop. And then eventually slithered out of frame. And we saw it kind of doing that because it wanted to get away. When we created sort of a box around it, there was only one direction where it could slither and get away. And so that's ultimately how we were able to get it moving out of frame.
So Sharon, I want to ask you some of the references because you and I are similar in age. So we were around in the 70s. Warren, you might have been born, but probably weren't.
I was born.
Yeah. But there's some references in there that, Warren, I don't know if you got. And Sharon, I want to ask how many were ones that were personal, like Bonanza. Did you used to watch that?
Yes, of course.
And did you practice kissing in your elbow when you were a teenage girl?
No, I didn't. That was Warren.
Oh, Warren, so you practiced that, huh?
But no, I didn't practice that. But I was.
Warren came up with it.
Yeah, right.
And there were different bits and pieces that Sharon and I both loved. I wouldn't say we cherry picked. Like we used a good, probably 80% things that really happened in real life, different situations, scenarios. And she had a relationship with her older sister who was a little hoity-toity. And there was that dynamic of the older sister trying to bring her out of her tomboyish hood and kind of rip her through puberty, being a young lady on the other side. And that was something that spoke to both Sharon and myself as a through line that we really wanted to kind of cling to and kind of wrap the story around.
So, Sharon, did you have the honor of getting your own extension phone? Was that one of your personal experiences?
My mother would not allow me to do that.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah, but I was an older sister and I was the cheerleader, but I was also a tomboy. So I was kind of both things.
Uh-huh. And of course, the drive-in movie, we remember those from the 50s.
Oh, of course, of course.
So you got Sean Astin in the movie. How did that come about?
Footnote.
Sean Astin is best known for The Goonies and Lord of the Rings, but he's been in numerous films. By the way, his mother is Patty Duke.
He really enjoyed the script and that it wasn't a gore fest, it wasn't a slasher. And he was really drawn to the fact that, what Sharon and I did with the script is really make it more theater of the mind. It was psychological in that respect.
And the family played a big part in the foundation of the story. I remember specifically as we were writing, we were thinking, okay, how can we make the father more sympathetic? Because one of the things that we dealt with in the story was that the father was absent quite a bit, which really set up the thriller part very well. But that also gave us the challenge of making the father more sympathetic when he was there. And Sean Astin was able to do that. Once he got involved, that was it. He really made that character very sympathetic.
I mean, Sean just brings a natural warmness to whatever character he, is inhabiting for the most part. So he's aware of that, and, he kind of knows what's at stake and what's in order for the characters.
There's one scene in the movie where there's a deeper connection with the killer. You see some kind of room or space where there's somebody tied up, and you think, okay, now we're going to get more into the background of the killer itself. But then it never went back to that.
Yeah.
Was that intentional to keep it mysterious, or what was that thinking?
Yeah, so that was a scene we actually added in after we cut the film because we knew in real life that there was a direct connection to Mansfield in a relationship to his father. And so we wanted to make a loose implication there that this goes deeper than it could potentially goes deeper than just one individual.
There was one scene in 1971, it said 1971 on the screen. She was in her bedroom and there was a poster behind her that said 3/29/74 on it.
That's a good eye. Good eye. Going back to like a little bit of how the sausage gets made, originally, the time frame in the film was all as it should be, meaning that it was actually a countdown. So we started in 1980 and worked our way back to 1975. And it lived like this through production and through editorial for the most part. As a countdown to this singular event where their two timelines going to merge on Halloween night of 1975. However, when we were in post-production and had screened it at a festival and the distributor came on board, there was some discussion about that countdown being difficult for an audience to consume because it put them in an analytical part of their brain and it kind of removed them from being in that thriller part of their brain. So they made the suggestion to change it from a countdown to a count up or count toward, which I think actually is pretty effective. But of course, when you make those decisions, there's sometimes elements that weren't shot that way.
Right.
That somebody as, insightful and detail oriented as yourself might pick up.
Right.
The original idea of the countdown had to do with, like Warren was saying, the psychological kind of analytical part of our brain going, wait now, 1980, 1979, 78, and we know it's 1974 during the main part of the story. And we're hoping that people will think, oh, she's going to be victim one because the countdown had victim number 6, 1980, victim number 5, 1979, and like that.
Okay. And I noticed there was a credit for Louisiana in there.
There was.
Did you shoot it in Florida or what was Louisiana involved in?
We primarily shot in Louisiana. Where that house is, the field right next to it before we began was a soybean field, and the soybean field is like a low-lying hedge, which could be anything in Florida. It's just
Right.
green. I was like, that's fine. And then about 3 weeks into production, when we're outside and we're filming all these exteriors, and all of a sudden we get to set one day, and I'm like, why is that field white?
Oh.
And it turns out that they had changed out the soy, had planted cotton. Boom. We had a huge white cotton field. If there's a tell that we're not actually filming in Florida, that's probably it.
You mentioned earlier focus groups. How did that process work for you?
I use focus groups throughout the whole process.
Oh,
So
did you? Where
we
were
had-
Like formal
we-
focus groups like they do in LA, or were these more casual friends focus groups?
more casual, non-friend focus groups. Like when we finished the screenplay and we knew we were going to production, Sharon and I got together with a group of young actors and we had them read the screenplay so we could hear it read back to us and also just get some general thoughts from them. But then once we got into the editorial production and we're, getting through drafts of the film as a full edit, Legion M, who was involved as a producer, kind of was able to organize some smaller groups. And then separately, I, through friends of friends, had groups that did group watching, screenings, group watchings, did group screenings. And then, then we had a forum for them to all film out separately. And then we just kind of took all that data in and looked at it and saw what was playing well. And, I think the countdown titling of those bits and pieces was probably the only thing that really was a question. 60% of the audience got it, loved it, the impact of it, the way that was working. 30% was confused at first, but eventually got it and liked it. And then 10% hated it, didn't understand it.
And to hell with them, right?
From the hell, right. So what's interesting is that that should tell you that if 90% in some way either have a positive or learn to understand it. And our idea from the get-go was really, this isn't something that the audience should pick up on immediately. It should take half the film before they pick up on this. They realize what the pattern is, because it's also part of the psychological part for the audience to start to realize, oh, what I'm watching, we're actually creeping in on. She's in danger, and having that growing realization for the audience as well. I don't think the producers are very excited about that because producers just want,
They want 100%. Yeah, of course.
Right.
It's interesting with the credits. I mentioned earlier that on the left side of the screen, you have this music video going on, shot almost like it was on a phone because it was vertical. On the right side, you have pages and pages of credits of, I guess, crowdfunding contributors.
Yeah, so Legion M, who is the producer on the film, they do a thing where they try to kind of pay back their investors, adding their names to the kind of the in crawl of the films that they are involved with. It's kind of cool, right?
I want to say something before I forget. We had a premiere of the movie here in Jacksonville. Thank you, Warren. It was fantastic.
A lot of fun. We had a good time.
But then there was a rolling, what did you call it? Rolling red carpet or something like that, where Warren, God bless him, went to all these places on the way to LA and had these premieres. Then we got to LA. I'd love for him to tell you something about the rolling red carpet, but when we got to LA, and I don't know why, because I lived there for all those years. I've been to red carpet things, I've been to premieres and all, but for some reason, this was it knocked me out. I opened the doors of the lobby and it was just packed with people. I could hardly get in. And then somebody came and grabbed my arm and said, "You're Sharon Cobb." And then I thought, oh my God, they've got me for my parking tickets all those years. And this guy took me to the red carpet. It was my handler, so to speak. Warren knew all this was happening. And I looked at the red carpet and there's this one picture somewhere I've seen of me going, like this, like what? and it's like wall to wall people, the paparazzi, it's like shoulder to shoulder. Literally, they could just lined up shoulder to shoulder. And then there were all of these people interviewing us. And it was amazing. Thank you, Warren. Warren did a fantastic job with all the people who coordinated with that.
I had no part of the LA premiere. I just showed up like Sharon. But they did. It was Relativity Media distributed the film, and they handled all of the David Edwards, the head of marketing for the film. So they did. They put on a fantastic premiere event for the film. And I will say, having Relativity gave us the ability and put some strength behind doing this sort of rolling red carpet where we did, 9 different events, leading up to the opening of the film in, 500 theaters nationwide. And it was a special time and a really neat experience to be able to go to these different cities and screen the film and sort of have that film festival Q&A experience with the audience. It was a really neat way to connect with an audience in the film.
How successful has it been? Or what's been the response to it?
It's been a good response. I think the New York Times was probably the only really, really unkind review of the film, which is unfortunate. But alas, we all can't get raving reviews from the New York Times.
Right.
But we're a small indie suspense thriller, so I know that the popcorn meter's been strong, and it was in Amazon's top 20 for I think 4 or 5 weeks straight. When it moved to PVOD, and at some point, Sharon and I are really involved in the distribution side of it all, so we're kind of on a need-to-know basis at this point.
Right, sure, yeah.
I've moved on to other creative endeavors.
That's going to be my last question. What's next? Are y'all going to do something together again?
Warren?
Yeah, we already have. We've written another screenplay. This one is a supernatural thriller, and just put together the pitch deck for that, and started the development process of, turning the wheels in motion for developing that into a feature.
Cool. Well, we'll have to have you back on in 2 or 3, 4 years, whenever that's finished.
That's right. You got it.
No, it takes a while. One question I always like to ask, when you're not working on your next movie, what do you like to watch? What are you watching right now, streaming, or what movie?
I watch TV series, basically. I do tend to go toward thriller. So I'm watching one right now that's kind of a light thriller called White Collar, cool FBI thing.
Honestly, I usually try to watch a movie a day, whether that equates to 2 episodes of a series or, 1 hour and a half, 2-hour film. And I usually kind of vacillate back and forth between a classic I haven't seen or revisiting something I've seen or something that's, fresh and new, but usually in a suspense thriller realm. My wife and I were waiting till all the episodes were out. So we just started watching season 3 of White Lotus.
Not good
that.
this year so far. Maybe it'll get better as it progresses, but not great so far.
I heard that it's really strong toward the end, but the first half just feels like a lot of exposition. So,
Right.
because they've had 2 strong seasons, I'm willing to invest.
Well, Sharon and Warren, this has been great fun. It was great to hear about the movie, and hopefully, Sharon, one of these days you'll come back to Richmond. I'll get a chance to meet you.
Maybe so.
And Warren, congratulations, and I look forward to talking to you next time.
Yeah, let's do it again, Jerry.
That was director Warren Skeels and his co-writer Sharon Cobb talking about their thriller, The Man in the White Van, which is now streaming. I'll include a link to the film on the webpage for this show at TV Jerry.
Coming soon. In theaters.
28 years later, 25 years ago, Danny Boyle created one of the best zombie movies ever, 28 Days Later. His team returns for this new one, which, as you might guess, takes place 28 years after the apocalypse, with Jodie Comer, Ralph Fiennes, and Aaron Taylor Johnson. Elio, the latest from Pixar, is about a kid with an active imagination who finds himself on an interplanetary adventure with his sweet alien sidekick.
TV and streaming.
Ironheart on Disney. For Marvel, this is about an engineering student who builds her own Iron Man-inspired supersuit and began fighting crime, starring Dominique Thorne in her first movie since Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. Countdown on Prime. An LAPD police officer joins a secret task force to investigate a suspicious murder, but uncovers a plot to stop a weapon of mass destruction from the creator of Chicago PD. Frozen, the hit Broadway musical, on Disney. If you didn't see it on stage, now you can see it on TV. The Buccaneers on Apple drops Season 2, while The Gilded Age on Max returns for Season 3, and The Bear on Hulu returns for Season 4. Next week, we're going to find out what agritainment is, with a local producer of 3 TV series. This is Jerry Williams. Thanks for listening.
For more Sifter, including literally thousands of reviews,
Visit tvjerry.com.
That's a wrap.